Persistence is key when hunting for this cache. What an illuminating new use for a film canister. You may want to take a gallon of water along for this creative cache. And have some batteries handy because some caches need a charge to be found. Sounds like a lot to learn, but everything you need to know can be found on the website geocaching.com, from how to get started to how to cache responsibly. And you can even learn about local geocaching events at OregonGeocaching.org. Here are some important geocaching terms you should know. This commemorative plaque just outside Estacada marks the spot where a Beaver Creek man named Dave Ulmer stashed the very first cache as a way of testing the accuracy of the GPS signal. That signal became available to civilians in the year 2000. He posted the cache coordinates online, and within 3 days it was found, and geocaching was born. Today in Oregon's Mount Hood territory, this treasure hunting pastime is stronger than ever. From the Mount Hood National Forest to the Willamette Valley Farms, it's an area that's ripe for exploration, and geocaching is the perfect way to discover all Clackamas County has to offer.
There are definitely thousands of caches in Clackamas County. Clackamas County, for one, geographically is a huge county, right, when you compare it to other counties around us. And one of the beautiful things I love about Clackamas County is there's so many open spaces in the county. And therefore, they're really, really prime locations for geocaches.
Not to mention what geocaching is doing for tourism. Recognizing this, Clackamas County Tourism and Cultural Affairs has partnered with many communities to create local geocaching challenges.
It's an organized activity that will bring people in from outside of the community to see the attractions and sites, heritage museums. It's a reason to come into a community when a family might not otherwise do it.
The geocaching program, it brings in people from out of town. So it means a lot to us in terms of people coming here, experiencing Canby and the surrounding area, and actually spending their money here. And that's really the tie-in for the Chamber of Commerce, because it really is about commerce. We want them to visit our great little city here, but we also want our businesses to prosper, and that ties that loop.
A community geo challenge is one in which cachers must find and log a series of caches in order to claim a geocoin, a prize for completing the challenge. Because challenges are customized for each community, every cache presents an opportunity to draw people to the host community's unique points of interest, such as wineries, parks, heritage sites, and geologic features.
Everywhere we went was a new place that we didn't know about, a little bit of history of the area that we hadn't read about or heard about before.
All you have to do to get started is set up your profile on geocaching.com and then log into the Mount Hood Territory website.
We post all of our challenges on our tourism's website. You'll print off a form, and when you find the caches, there'll be a clue that you have to write down. So there's 10 caches per each challenge. And when you've filled out all of the clues, you'll go to a redemption center. One of the redemption centers here is at the end of the Oregon Trail. So during their office hours, you can redeem your form and get a coin. Or on off hours, you can go to a local coffee shop. Usually something that's open on the weekend, so there's accessibility.
It's great to have an activity that we can do as a family where we're all working together towards something, and it's exciting because it's like a treasure hunt. So everybody can kind of play a different part in how we find it and what we do when we get it. One of us always writes in a log, and one of us is the person who writes down the clues. So it's just kind of fun for all of us to be able to do that together.
The collectible coins cachers can earn by completing a challenge are a big part of the treasure.
So for each one of our coin challenges, this is the prize that people get for completing a coin challenge. They're unique to each community, and they have a unique tracking number.
Communities mint new coins for each new challenge. The image is used on the redemption site.
So 80% of the people really weren't from here, and when they came to visit here, one of the amazing things was how much they loved the Canby community.
Clackamas County cash containers are marked with a sticker indicating what they are and are larger in size, allowing for more cash inside.
When we set up caches for our coin challenges, this is typically what we'll use. We'll use an ammo can, which we get at hardware stores. The nice thing about it is they're large enough to hold swag, the toys that people can pick up here, bring to another cache, or just keep. We'll refill these as the swag levels get down. And sometimes businesses will put goodies in there. You know, a credit union might put refrigerated magnets in or pens or something. Sometimes they'll sponsor hand sanitizer kits, little first aid kits, more toys. So this is typically what the county will do.
Clackamas County caches also take you on adventures, like a ride across the Willamette River on the historic Canby Ferry, or a trip up the iconic elevator in Oregon City, where an incredible view awaits you at the top.
We got to ride that big elevator too.
How was that?
That was really fun.
And it doesn't matter how old or young or big or small you are.
Because I'm small, I could find the one that was hidden in the grass behind the fence.
But the very best part about geocaching in Clackamas County is that it's a low-cost way of exploring and learning while having lots of fun.
I definitely think we'll be doing a lot more geocaching as a family because it's a great way to get out for 3 or 4 hours together, just being outside in nature. And just the whole aspect of having the excitement of the hunt is so fun for us. The fact that it doesn't cost anything to do it, that's great too.
When you log onto the Mount Hood Territory website, it will tell you which caches in the county are active and if a city is out of coins. Clackamas County Cache Challenges do not run all year long, so be sure to check the website before you head out. Because geocaching is a worldwide activity, when you become a cacher, you make a connection with other cachers around the globe. This common interest is the thread that brings geocachers near and far together at gatherings. You don't have to look hard to find out what this group has in common. They are all geocachers. Some new at it, others have cached since the beginning. Some retired, others are in kindergarten, but they are all here for the same reason.
Geocaching.
That's geocaching. Daniel and his wife came all the way from Sweden to geocache in Beaver Creek.
This is a nice place to visit if you're a real geocacher, I think.
They came here to celebrate geocaching in the place where it all began. And while they're here, they turn to the geocaching message boards to create a gathering in Clackamas County.
You never know where you come to. You find beautiful places around the world, and you can meet some new friends. And we have a small event here today, so I have never met these people before, but we're all like friends. We all have the same interest in geocaching, so it's wonderful.
This is the very first gathering for new geocachers Jeff and Jennifer Weber.
Oh, this is so boring. And then I went and get my first one myself, and it's like, oh, I like this.
The Crams are a retired couple who love to travel and geocache.
And it's all ages. Both our boys are in it. We have 2 boys, and our grandson is 4 now, one of them, and one's 2, and the 4-year-old just loves it.
Little Terrian couldn't agree more. He enjoys geocaching with his mother.
Go out once a week, every Sunday almost, and just have an adventure, discover new parks, new roads. Something I've told him, going, here's a new park, and he's learned from other people of that's what geocaching does. It takes us to new places that we've never been before, lots of fun things. He enjoys it to the point where his kindergarten teacher said they were doing presentations and they needed parent volunteers to give a quick 20-minute presentation on something they're an expert about. And he instantly said, Mom, geocaching!
Really wanted to go out with us, just like my teacher wanted to go out. But some of the kids have found like 7 caches or more or less.
He shares half a hard necklace with his mother, which also happens to be a geocaching trackable. Daniel also brought trackable coins with him all the way from Sweden.
Unlike the cache swag, that are the small toy items that you're allowed to trade in a cache, a trackable isn't meant for trade. It's meant to move. The whole goal of those trackable is to move from cache to cache to cache. And so when you find one, it has a number on it. You can take it, but then you have to log that you've taken it. Now it shows up in your possession, and then your job as a cacher is to move that trackable to another location.
Those coins have already traveled from Sweden to Oregon, These lucky winners will decide where they will journey next.
The first one is PDX Rose.
After exchanging coins and meeting friends new and old, these gatherers decide it's time to hit some nearby geocaches.
One thing you have to remember is when you go somewhere, you don't know the cool spots, the ins and outs of a city or the ins and outs of an area that's out in the wilderness, but the locals do. And those locals place caches there. So you end up finding places that you wouldn't otherwise find. There might be in a guidebook, they might be on a website, just by geocaching, and you learn of beautiful hikes, beautiful waterfalls, neat geologic formations, interesting history about a community.
How many amazing new places are waiting for you just outside your front door or on your next vacation? It's never too late to start. All you have to do is download the geocaching app, and these little green dots are your guide to adventure. Hello everyone and welcome to Inside Clackamas County. I'm your host, Kimberly Jacobson. In case you haven't noticed, the beer scene is exploding in Oregon with over a dozen brew pubs in Clackamas County alone, not to mention some of the most enthusiastic craft brew drinkers. In today's show, we explore what it takes to get here and why this industry shows no signs of slowing down. It's Friday night at Breakside Brewery's tap room. Both beer and conversation are flowing. Magnificent golden hues, rich coppers and dark chocolate tones bubble with promises of caramel malt, sour apricot, and serrano chilies.
This is the Wanderlust IPA. It's my first time in here, so it's the first beer I've tasted from Breakside, and I love IPA, but this is particularly really well balanced, and really enjoying it. It's an easy beer to drink.
Breakside started as a small brew pub in Northeast Portland before it opened its production brewery in Milwaukee in 2012.
So the two guys who actually founded Breakside were friends who met through the Ultimate Frisbee community in Portland, and Breakside is originally an Ultimate Frisbee term, but when we were opening the brewery, we decided that was too narrow a community to market to. So Breakside evolved from being a term in Ultimate Frisbee to sort of embodying this lifestyle of kick back, relax, enjoy life, enjoy beer, enjoy it with friends.
Breakside is known for creating a wide range of beer. In 2013 alone, they made 101 different varieties.
When we decide to make beers that we like to make, things that we think are going to be really delicious. That's always the most important thing for us with our beer. We want to make beer that is delicious if it's a traditional style. We want to make beer that is delicious if it's an experimental beer that no one's ever made before. It has to be drinkable, it has to be really tasty before anything else.
The process begins with raw malted barley, hops, water, and brewer's yeast.
So on a given brew day, we'll actually take, over the course of about 6 hours, we'll take 2,000 to 4,000 pounds of malt, grind it, mix it into a big sort of oatmeal-like stew, but it's with malted barley instead of oats. And that sits, and what happens during that time is all the sugar, or the starches actually, that are present in the barley get converted into sugars that will eventually become alcohol.
None of the flowers are in yet, correct?
Chrysanthemum went in the boil. We really reduced the amount of jasmine that we did after the pub version, but I think you get that Sichuan peppercorn really nice sort of on the back end right now. We only end up using 2 pounds of jasmine. So we strain the liquid off from the grain, and we bring it up to a boil when we add hops. And hops are what give you both bitterness in beer as well as some of the best flavor and aroma in hoppy beers like IPAs. From there then we pump the beer into one of our tanks behind us here, and it'll spend 7 to 10 days fermenting actively. So we add in yeast, and during that time the yeast takes the sugar that's present in the liquid and turns it into carbon dioxide into alcohol. And after about 10 days we're able to turn the temperature down on those tanks. The yeast falls down to the bottom of the tanks, which is why they have the cylindrical bottoms, so we can get the yeast out of there. And then we pump the beer into one of our finished beer tanks where we let it sit, brighten up, which is to say make it clear, and carbonate it in there.
Varying the taste starts with the malted barley used and continues with the flavors that are layered throughout. Everything from roasted duck to fresh ginger to orange peel.
Well, fortunately, we have a very small brewery up in Northeast Portland where we can pretty much brew anything that we want. We can do really oddball beers. Like we just made a beer with some of the hottest chilies on the planet called Trinidad Scorpions. We've made beers with all sorts of different fruits up there. We've made beers with all sorts of different spices, as well as traditional styles of beer that we wanted to see if we liked, sort of doing research and development type brewing before we make a big 1,000-gallon batch down here.
Even the barrels, some formerly containing bourbon or whiskey, and the amount of time the beer is aged in them impart their signature on the final result. The brewmasters taste, confer, and calculate throughout the entire process. Their taste buds decide which brews make it to larger scale production and finally into kegs, bottles, and tap rooms. But don't ask them to name their favorite.
Oh, it's like choosing between your children. I can't do that. We do have a few beers that are our most popular. We have our IPA and our Pilsner, which are our 2 flagship brands. Those are available year-round on draft and in bottles throughout Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, Idaho. Some it's actually available in Japan as well. And then we also have a seasonal bottle that we're always making. So as of February 1st, that beer is going to be our salted caramel stout, and that's one of our most popular beers. So really, it's a beautiful dessert beer.
Many of these varieties can be found in the Milwaukee tap room.
Basically, it's a bar that's all about the beer. You can come and sample as many of our beers as you'd like. We have beer by the glass, by the sampler tray, and growlers to go, bottles to go, and of course by the pint as well. You can also buy kegs from us here. And what's really fun about our tap room here is that it's always staffed by a brewer. So the person who's your bartender is also one of the brewers. So you're going to get someone behind the bar who really can tell you about the beers, who's super knowledgeable about the ingredients, the processes, and the company as a whole.
Many of the tasters are also home brewers.
We get a ton of home brewers in who ask us about our raw materials, what hops we use, or ask for information about specific recipes. And we're big believers that sharing your knowledge is a huge part of what makes craft beer great. So we don't tell everyone every last secret of ours, but we'll share almost everything.
Home brewers and the increasing number of tap houses in Oregon are creating a pretty enthusiastic beer scene here in Clackamas County and statewide.
Fortunately, we have a state that's very favorable towards, politically very favorable towards small breweries. It's not expensive to start a small brewery here compared to other states, and that's part of the reason why we have a really robust brew pub and brewery culture. Also, I'd say that we are living in America's brewing heartland in a lot of ways. The Willamette Valley and the Yakima Valley still produce about 99% of the commercial hops in the United States. So we're less than 30 miles from some of the best hop fields in the world. That also, a lot of the grain that we get is coming from Alberta and is malted right over the river in Vancouver, Washington. So we really have access to incredible raw materials here, an environment where we have the best drinkers and most enthusiastic drinkers in the world, and a political climate that's really allowed small breweries and small businesses to thrive.
If you are new to craft beer or nervous about trying something other than familiar traditional brands, simply venturing out to a tap room and trying a sampler tray may open a whole new world for you to explore, right in your own backyard.
I think there's a whole world of beer out there, and it's fun to experiment. You know, if you're a Coors or Bud drinker, I appreciate that. We make beers that are very similar to that sometimes, because we like to drink those beers too. But if you're living in Oregon right now and haven't had IPAs and haven't tried pale ales or the lagers that are being produced here, the sour beers and the barrel-aged beers, you're missing out on some of Oregon's finest artisan drinks.
Well, this is one of the things that makes the Northwest great. Lived up here for between 20 and 30 years, and you know, there's always new beers and new places to explore with great beer.
Thank you. Well, this is a lovely sight to behold, but there are many things that take place before the brewing even begins. Those first steps occur on many Clackamas County and Oregon farms. In 1932, Oregon led the world in hop production. Today, we are second in the United States, led by our neighbors north in Yakima Valley, with Germany another close contender. The rich Willamette Valley soil, mild climate, and abundant rainfall create perfect conditions for commercial hop growth.
Well, the hops, they're a perennial plant, and they'll come up in the spring, you know, or even a little before true spring in March, and then they'll go through the cultivation, and pretty much from mid-August to mid-September are the harvest dates. And it varies by variety. Each variety matures a little bit differently, and it will even vary from season to season. And so we'll work very closely with the farms, and we're fortunate the farms that we work with here in the valley, they've been growing hops in their families for well over 100 years. And they have a lot of knowledge on how to take care of the plants and how to not just get good yields, but get, you know, the quality that we're looking for in the aroma development for brewing purposes.
The aromatic and flavorful hop flower looks like a small pine cone. A ripe cone is a shade of golden green with yellow resin glands near its core. This is when it's time to harvest.
The farm itself will then cut the plants down off of the cables, the trellising that they're on, and bring them into central processing at the farm, where the machinery will pick the hops and separate and clean them away from the vine itself and the stem and the leaf material, so you can have just a clean hop cone, and then go through a drying process, which is a real key process to get it to just the right moisture content. And then post-drying, they'll take it into a conditioning room where it can kind of equalize with some atmospheric humidity and be ready to go into baling process.
In mid-August, these 200-pound hop bales begin arriving at the Indy Hops processing plant in Hubbard, one of the largest aromatic hop processing plants in the United States.
So what you'll see here is you'll see the actual bales that we still had, you know, just pulled out of the cooler that we got from the farms, and we'll stage those bales and put them through the process where basically we remove the bale cover, put them into what is referred to as a bale breaker, which really just kind of chews the bale back up into smaller pieces that can go through the machinery.
Once the bales are broken down, a conveyor belt brings them into a hammer mill where they are chopped into a consistent grist, then dumped into a mixer.
So that any inconsistencies, or I should just say differences in the hop product, get evened out in the mixer, and then are brought through a bucket conveyor on up to the pellet mill itself, where the hop material is forced through a pellet die and extruded through the die, and then cut to the given length that you're after. And those pellets themselves will then drop down into a cooler.
Throughout the process, the bale number and temperatures are recorded for consistency.
They warm up a little in the extrusion process. It's one of the unique things about our mill is we successfully, with some engineers' help, were able to design a new mill that really focused on keeping the temperature low so that the desirable essential oils in the hop are not damaged. And that's really what we're trying to preserve, trying to take the hop material off the farm and not change anything about it, keep its natural character, and then just change the form into the Type 90 pellet, which stores better and is much easier for the breweries to handle through the brewing process, and actually adds some efficiency in the brewing process as well.
These compact pellets are then packaged.
So we'll go ahead and we want to package them in an inert environment, and so they'll go in, you'll see this in the process, they'll go into a foil pouch that is the best oxygen barrier available from a packaging standpoint. And that pouch will be formed into a box, and then it goes through a process of vacuum to evacuate the atmosphere from the bag, and then an injection of pure nitrogen, a little bit of a soak, and that helps to bring up any residual oxygen that is still in there, then another vacuum, and then at the end a little shot of pure nitrogen. So we end up with a very low oxygen, usually well below 1% residual oxygen in the package. And this foil barrier that doesn't let light in allows us to put the hops in a cooler at 28 degrees and give them at least a three-year life cycle, basically.
They are shipped all over North America, where the high domestic demand has kept indie hops from expanding much outside the U.S.
Our timing, just pure luck. I mean, we were believers in the craft industry and the growth that was ahead, but the growth we've seen really was unexpected. It's been tremendous, and it hasn't allowed us to get outside of North America, basically. So we just continue to increase future supply by making long-term commitments with the growers, contracts to come off the farm, and that does have a shipping all across North America. The West Coast is big, but there are some pockets of craft brewing across the country that they've always been strong, but they've really been growing recently, whether it be Austin, Texas, or Colorado was always a great area. The craft segment of the historically huge brewing community in Wisconsin, all across the Great Lakes, and then on the East Coast too. It's really across the country. And
Indie Hops has been going strong since 2008, when co-owners Jim Solberg and Roger Worthington met over a pint and decided the Willamette Valley was ripe for a hops processing, storage, and distribution facility. And then they made that dream happen.
Oregon had a great reputation for growing aroma hops, but they didn't have any processing post-farm. So we came down here to set up a hop pelleting mill, basically, to take the great Willamette Valley growing hops and turn them into the form that probably 85-90% of the brewing that takes place in the craft industry in the United States is using the form of Type 90 hop pellets.
Indie Hops connects the growers with the buyers and takes progressive steps to ensure they are all involved with every step of the process.
Believing in the future of Oregon as a supplier of high-quality aroma hops to the craft industry was to start a program, fund a program at Oregon State that is a partnership with them between Indie Hops and Oregon State for a hop research and breeding program, which is really an exciting thing because it started a pipeline of new hop varieties that over the next few years will start being released and tried from a commercial standpoint in the marketplace. And that'll be a really interesting time to for the first time in many years have some Oregon developed hop varieties come out with a focus on new flavors for the craft industry.
They also value customer feedback and enjoy hitting the road to test out some of their hops in breweries after production.
But yeah, it's just a lot of fun for us to get the chance to try the different beers they're brewing, and it was really exciting this year at the big Great American Beer Festival to see some major categories. The medal winners have the beer using our hops, and so being able to be out there with the brewers and hear how they're using the hops, and then hear how the beer is being responded to in the marketplace is a big help for us.
In an environment where world-class aroma hops thrive and the craft beer industry shows no sign of slowing down, Indie Hop's greatest challenge will be keeping up with the demand for Oregon-grown aroma hops. Well, we've shown you the hops and the finished product, but there's still one very important element to brewing good beer: the tanks. And one of the largest tank manufacturers on the West Coast is located right in Canby, Oregon. This 50,000 square foot state-of-the-art manufacturing facility can accommodate construction of tanks up to 15 feet in diameter and 60 feet in overall height. JV Northwest Incorporated was established in 1981 to manufacture stainless steel vessels, mixers, and systems for several different industries. And they manufactured the very first brewing equipment for the early craft breweries in Oregon.
So the original owners had gotten into the industry of building just beverage tanks, and then from there we decided to diversify into quite a vast variety of industries, including food, pharmaceutical, biofuels, brewing, and wineries, so that when any one industry is not doing so well, there's plenty to choose from of other types of industries to build tanks for.
And the brewing industry?
Oh, it's huge. I've been almost doing exclusively breweries ever since I got here, so I would say right now it's a huge percentage of our business, although we still hit all the other industries. For me, the brewing industry occupies all my time, and they're more in-depth projects, which I really enjoy.
Being based in the Northwest also plays a big part in their success.
It's been amazing. We're right here in the center of it. Portland is a mecca for beer. It's a mecca for the raw ingredients. We have tight ties to it, the hop growers. In fact, I've been growing hops on our roof here since last year. So we have good connections there. It's a great place to be. Proximity puts us right in the mix of it, and I don't think it would do as well if we were anywhere else. However, we do service the entire United States, so we like our own backyard, but we will also service the entire United States and international projects as well.
All the work is done right here in the Canby facility, from engineering the tank design to the building and fabrication of every part that goes into the brewing vessels.
An average tank depends on the size, but if we take a standard system like a 20-barrel brew house, the cellar tanks, unit tanks, and the bright tanks, those will be roughly week and a half for that size system. You look at the individual brewing components in each tank, and those have a lot more complexity to them. So there's machine parts, we have to bring in drives, and we have to assemble those. So those are, sometimes they can last as much as a month and a half for a larger tank such as a lauter ton. There is a lot of hands in it. It's kind of unique in that getting the parts kitted up takes a lot of different groups to get everything together. And then prefabrication will take all the individual small items and send it to a couple different workstations to build small components. But once it hits a gantry, it's really just one guy and his night shift partner, and they just build them in the same position, one guy in day, one day at night, and if it's a really big tank, there might be a second or third guy per shift to work on it.
And sometimes the way they build may not make much sense to you and me.
Sometimes building the tanks isn't always adding A to B and B to C. Sometimes you have to go out of order or do things first. You build the bottom of the tank, and you ship it outside, and then you build the top of the tank, and then to put the two together, sometimes you have to do things and what doesn't seem like a logical way to do it, but it's the most efficient way.
Another important aspect of efficiency is tank geometry.
Tank geometry will affect how things flocculate, how they actually, so when you're brewing and you're using yeast, the yeast is metabolizing sugars and it's convecting throughout the whole process inside the tank. And if you don't have good tank geometry, you might not get the tank turns that you're looking for to really get the whole thing mixed up. And when it comes to settling that yeast out again, if you have a cone bottom tank and it's at the wrong angle, you can put higher pressure on the yeast, and the yeast doesn't necessarily like that. So it's very, very important to get tank geometry correct, and we specialize in that.
Once the tanks are complete, a crane moves them from the factory onto a truck. At least that's how it works for the easy ones.
I had a project that went to Bangalore, India, and basically we had to get the building of the tanks was easy at that point. It was getting everything into shipping containers and making sure that through customs all the tank components arrived. So I have this extensive list of every single component that got shipped, where it needed to be in the shipping container, when those shipping containers arrived, who cut the seal on the shipping container, And ultimately, everything got there, but it was definitely a logistic challenge.
But with each challenge or change in the industry, they evolve.
Well, we've been in this for a long time, and we know what it takes to make good beer on our tanks, but we're not stopping there. So we're really spending time looking back at what we know and see if we can update it. Looking at simple things like the increased usage of hops. Well, you have to be able to account for that usage, whereas in the past it was something like 1 pound per barrel of hops, and now we're looking at like as much as 3 pounds a barrel, and that demands the use of a tank that can handle that much load. So I've done a lot of tests with hop usage, hop expansion rates, and how it plays into the whole brewing role. And that's one piece that we're looking at, and we're just looking at the whole process in general, making things look better, making things function better, never stopping.
For more information on any of the places we visited today, you can check them out online. And a special thanks to Breakside Brewery for hosting us today, and for you for joining us for another episode of Inside Clackamas County, keeping you connected with your community.
This pretty girl is Raina, and Raina is a unique mix of Airedale Terrier and Golden Retriever. She is a mix of two historically hunting breeds, but the same two breeds are known for being intelligent, loving, and playful. Raina is only 2 years old and still has quite a bit to learn, and she is very eager to learn, eager to please, eager to run, eager to play. She is just very excitable and up for any interaction. She really wants to please you. She is treat motivated and praise motivated, so she is ready for training. Raina loves people and getting to spend time with them, so training time will be an enjoyable bonding time for her. Being so young, Raina will be active for many years and will fit best with an active home that likes outdoor adventures. Dog parks will be a great treat, hikes will be fun, and swimming will be a great way to keep her cool in the summer. Restrictions includes children over 12, as she can knock young tots over in her excitement, and no cats. If you're looking for a unique, athletic, and friendly doggie and have time to devote to her, Raina will make a great canine companion and an excellent adventure buddy.
Affordable family fun has a simple recipe. Just add water. Make your next family outing a splash at the North Clackamas Aquatic Park.
This is our grand opening of the Hidden Falls Nature Park. It's the North Clackamas Park and Recreation District's 21-acre park that features the falls that are just over my shoulder here and preservation of all of this open space. We have pathways and this beautiful bridge that we're standing on here across Rock Creek. So we're celebrating this wonderful accomplishment for our community.
There has never been a crossing over the creek. That connection over the creek is really valuable. It connects the Oregon Trails Elementary School with Rock Creek Middle School, and kids can actually walk to school now. The most important thing is just the path itself, which is 10 feet wide, and it's easy for everybody to get down into this valley and see the hidden falls.
I think over time, as the word gets out and people learn about it, it is really going to be, as much as it's a local amenity, I think people are going to see this as a great regional amenity because it's so unique with the falls and what we have here.
It's just a beautiful setting in an urban part of town that people weren't aware of was here, and now that it's open to the public, people can come down and can picnic and they can hike and walk and look at nature, and it's a pretty special place.
The falls, which is at a trickle compared to what normally is, in the winter time or the fall, these falls are really flowing. It's a roar, and it's really, really loud in here. You would think you have to drive an hour to find falls like these, but to have this here in our backyard is awesome.
It's easy to not know this was here, and once you get down into the to the park here and you realize what a gem it is and what an oasis we have here, people are really excited about it.
The Clackamas River is a uniquely diverse river system. With its source high in the Cascade Mountains, the upper reaches of the river are part of the National Wild and Scenic Rivers System. At lower elevations, conifer forests are actively managed within the watershed, and dams provide power, while irrigation water is drawn from the Clackamas and its tributaries for agricultural use. The lower Clackamas River Basin is convenient to Portland and is developing rapidly. It offers breathtaking mountain views with native wildflowers and wildlife, and direct access for fishing, boating, and hiking. The Clackamas River provides drinking water to nearly 400,000 people. The Clackamas River Basin Council is an environmental nonprofit that engages communities and landowners in watershed improvement projects to ensure clean water and to improve fish and wildlife habitat in the lower Clackamas River watershed. No better way than by air to offer a unique perspective of several recent Clackamas River Basin Council restoration projects. At the junction of Mosier Creek and Little Clear Creek near Estacada is a magnificent working sustainable forest property that is part of the holdings of Port Blakely, a family-owned company for 5 generations. Port Blakely has a long history of valuing strong environmental stewardship and is working with the Clackamas River Basin Council to enhance nearly 2 miles of Little Clear and Mosier Creeks for the native fish populations that spawn and live there. This project was planted in 2018, and the native plants have already gotten a great start at creating a lush riparian zone along these free-flowing creeks. Farther down the watershed, Bonnie Lure State Recreation Area is an Oregon State Parks property at the confluence of Eagle Creek and the Clackamas River. Eagle Creek provides spawning and rearing habitat for endangered coho, chinook, and steelhead. This 68-acre Oregon State Parks recreation area is open to the public year-round. Decades of logging, farming, and development allowed invasive plants to take hold and smother the important native species that are key food and shelter for wildlife. Funded by grants from the U.S. Forest Service and the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, the Clackamas River Basin Council is now working to remove invasive plants and increase biodiversity by reestablishing tree cover and native shrubs that reduce erosion and flooding. From high above, Barton Park looks green and vibrant. However, this county park, situated along the Clackamas River, is Clackamas County's most used park, with full riverfront and riparian natural resource areas. Overuse of the riparian area by fishermen and floaters had damaged native plants and allowed invasive ivy and blackberry to take over. Clackamas River Basin Council, with funding from the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, coordinated the work of several partners to restore and protect this key main stem habitat. A summer youth crew funded by the Oregon State Marine Board removed invasive plants and defined trail corridors, while the Rivers of Life Center, a youth education and natural resource training organization, constructed trails and fencing to protect the recovering riparian corridor and planted over 400 feet of important riverside habitat. From the air, the open fields along Clear Creek North Natural Area stand out from the forested slopes around it. The land was farmed for many years, leaving very little riparian habitat along this section of the creek. This free-flowing tributary to the Clackamas River supports 11 different species of fish, including threatened species of chinook, winter steelhead, and late-run coho. To restore the riparian habitat, the Clackamas River Basin Council removed almost 4 acres of invasive species and planted 9,500 native plants as part of Portland General Electric's Shade Our Streams program. To restore in-stream fish habitat along 3,000 feet of the stream, Clackamas River Basin Council partnered with Metro, the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, and the U.S. Forest Service. Heavy equipment was used to reconnect alcoves and place large wood logs to provide off-channel cover and reduce flow velocity during high water. As native plants mature along this section of Clear Creek, they will shade the stream, reducing water temperatures and providing cover for resident and migrating fish and other wildlife. CRBC's hard work to improve watershed habitat is expansive and is experienced by people in the region in so many uniquely different ways. From production to recreation, the Clackamas means many different things to many people who experience it. In the fast-moving Upper Clackamas River system, whitewater kayaking is a favorite pursuit. Sam Drevo started Energy Kayaking to promote the sport of kayaking and to protect the health of our rivers. He started a nonprofit, We Love Clean Rivers, and has partnered with Clackamas River Basin Council to recruit volunteers every year to support the Down the River cleanup.
Well, the Clackamas is important to me because I went to college in Portland, and the Clackamas River is the closest river with moving water, and so I spent a lot of time in my college years on the Clackamas. The first couple years that we ran the event, we had the Clackamas County dive team come out and bring 8 or 10 additional scuba tanks, and they literally were in a silver sea of cans on the bottom of the river. And so we created a nonprofit called We Love Clean Rivers to just make sure that the event continued into the future, to try to, bring in, more partnerships. I think last time I checked, there was 22 organizations involved in the event. It's something that the whole community has gotten, has embraced, and I think that it will work to benefit the river and clean water into the future. The CRBC brought all the relationships from the county, all the agencies, and really kind of the following year it doubled, and then it kept doubling every year for quite a few years. And so it was basically connecting the recreation community with a small watershed nonprofit. That was the success.
The forested slopes of the Clackamas watershed support working forests that can be managed to improve habitat for fish and wildlife, as well as produce harvestable timber. In the Sutter Creek subwatershed, small woodlot owner David Bugney has been proactive in managing his forest acreage to best protect streams and wetlands while reducing impacts from harvesting timber.
We became connected with the Clackamas watershed when we first moved out here in about 1990, and being on a creek, which is part of the Clackamas River watershed, that tied us to it. And so I've always been interested in things like that, so I read as much as I could to try to understand more about what the Clackamas River is all about, and that really got me enticed about it. The Clackamas River Basin Council has been of great help to us, and we first became involved about 9 or 10 years ago when they came out and they gave us seedlings to plant in the riparian area. But then in 2015, things really started to get going when they enrolled us in the Shade Our Streams program. And so we had about 1,400 feet of creek bank that was where we had exotic reed canary grass and Himalayan blackberry, where the folks at CRBC came out, removed that, and then replanted with almost a couple of dozen different native species of trees and plants and shrubs that we have around us here. And then following that, in 2017, I worked with CRBC to write a small OWEB grant to install additional large woody debris, boulders and gravels farther upstream. And so I think those three activities have been the principal things that CRBC has helped us with, and it's been an invaluable organization, very important to us.
Clean, cool water is necessary to the survival of our native fish and other aquatic life in the Clackamas watershed. Tim Shibahara has lived in the Clackamas Basin for most of his life. As a fish biologist with power producer Portland General Electric, Tim has been involved in developing new approaches to ensure quality habitat and safe passage through dams for endangered salmon and other fish species in the Clackamas River Basin.
I think the thing that's drawn me to the Clackamas River is that I moved here in the early 70s, and this is the basin that I know. This is the streams that I've always played in as a kid. As a kid, I was always fascinated with the Clackamas Basin and the tributaries and streams, playing with the fish and the salamanders and frogs that I would find in it. And so that fascination kind of led me to college, where I studied fish biology, and my first work coming back to the Clackamas Basin was with the Forest Service doing research. The cool thing about the Clackamas River is that it has some very viable salmon and steelhead runs. And so of the Willamette Basin and of the Lower Columbia, it's really one of the hallmark basins for fish health. I came to Portland General Electric about 20 years ago, and for me, when I was with the Forest Service, working with the biologists at PGE was something that I really enjoyed. They had a lot of passion for improving fish runs in the Clackamas and improving river health. What we're looking at here is the floating surface collector at North Fork Reservoir. And what this does is it improves fish passage around the dams for the baby fish. One of the things that we found through a lot of research was that our fish passage here was okay for most of the baby fish, but some species like Chinook did not guide very well to certain types of structures. So we made this one, which was a lot larger, which really does a really good job of passing Chinook downstream. The floating surface collector has dramatically increased survival on the Clackamas River for baby fish making their way to the ocean. For me as a biologist, I think the thing that I enjoy most about being out on the river is I love observing change. And so I love seeing how the river changes after floods. I love seeing the changes after each season. I love the lower Clackamas right now because of all the change that's going on down there with the Shade Our Streams program, with the gravel augmentation program going on down there. And so the goal of the Shade Our Streams program that PGE partnered with the Clackamas River Basin Council on was a goal of planting 30 miles of riparian area. And so we have hit that this year, and we're still in maintenance mode for some of the sites, but it's been a huge success.
As the urban area begins to develop along the lower sections, the Clackamas River is becoming a mecca for outdoor recreation just outside of Portland. Along its banks are opportunities for fishing, floating, paddling, hiking, bicycling, and camping. Tina Johnson discovered the Clackamas River on a kayak. She now floats the river on multiple weekends in the summer months, on many of those days picking up trash left in the river by others.
I moved here in 1993. And a friend introduced me to the river in 1995. And we put in right here at Barton Park, and then we took out at Carver, and I just fell in love with it. I love the water, and I had taken some trips to Hawaii, and I met this gentleman on the beach who was a very friendly man, and it seemed like he was always looking out for the people who were new there by telling them to wear your fins and making sure you're not caught in a riptide. But I also noticed that he was picking up trash. And I asked him why, and then asked him who he was with, and he was not connected with anybody, but he just did it out of his own heart. I was so inspired by it, and I felt like, yes, one person can actually make a big difference. And if I can inspire others to make that difference as well, that would be awesome. When I found out about the amount of garbage that I encountered last summer, I knew that this was a bigger problem than just for me to solve. I met Susie from the Clackamas River Basin Council, and we partnered on ideas on how we can keep the river clean and just help people be aware of how we can respect the river and the people who use it. I think everybody loves the river that much that they would want to help and chip in and do their part.
The Clackamas River watershed is a resource and an environmental treasure. Your support is needed to ensure that it is protected in the face of increasing development and climate change. Because when the river thrives, we all thrive, especially when we work together.
Clacco TV. Look for us on these local channels.
Carry, colors, forward, march.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming?
This morning, Americans across our nation are gathering at cemeteries, parks, and memorials to observe Memorial Day, just like we are. We set aside today as a day to remember our service members that are no longer with us. Frankly, I can't think of a better day to unveil this memorial dedicated to the service and sacrifice of our service members and first responders.
The Lake Oswego Veterans Memorial is organized as a 501c3, so donations can be tax deductible. We are registered with the Oregon Cultural Trust. Our board members are all volunteers and have not received any compensation for their work on the memorial.
Particularly when I had kids, I didn't want Veterans Day and Memorial Day to just be another day off of school, so we started looking for events to do on those days. And as I was at those events, I started thinking, I have a really nice life. And it's because of the service and sacrifice of other people. And it was really kind of that thought that said, you know, I need to give back. I need to do something. I need to tell these men and women that I appreciate it and I'm grateful to them. So that was the motivation for me to get involved.
Ready?
It was so impressive and so emotional for me and some other board members as well that we finally got this to the stage that it's at. Very pleased, proud, honored to what we have accomplished here.
The person who will die in a violent place like that loves peace enough to die for it. A lot of people forget that. They're peace-loving people, and they're willing to die for the peace. They're willing to take on the hits and risk their lives. So what do we do with that? We recognize the freedoms. We have to show up. We have to remember. And when I came to Lake Oswego, one of the reasons that I got choked up walking in is that you have such a large crowd of people. I didn't know that this city was that patriotic. I didn't, and I love you guys. I just didn't know.
I'm thinking a lot about my dad. My dad passed last June. He was a major in the U.S. Army. In fact, we bought a bench here, and right behind me, 10 feet behind me, is my dad's name, and etched in granite, and it'll stay there forever. So I'm thinking a lot about him today.
I'm just lost with emotions on this thing and words, what I can say of how proud I am of how this memorial looks today and how it's going to look in the future when we have another stage we're going to do here, and we got some money to raise for that. But yeah, it's awesome, just great. And it's, you know, it's for all the veterans, past, present, and future. And this is for them and their families. And we're going to have a place where families can come and reflect their loved ones that served in the armed forces and first responders.
You're watching Clacko TV.
Clacko TV. Look for us on these local channels.
You're watching Clacko TV. You're watching Clacko TV.
All right, Clackamas County, who out there is looking for the sweetest dynamic duo around? This black lab here is Tucker. He is 12 years old. And his best friend in the whole wide world, this is Zoe. She is a 10-year-old, maybe husky shepherd mix. They are a bonded pair. They love each other very much. They're the bestest of all friends in the world. Though they're on their senior years, don't let that dissuade you. They still love going outside on their walks together. They love having time in our play yards here. Yes, they do. They would love a home that'll provide them with soft, cozy beds that they get to nap on with each other. Yes. And just some moderate exercise, maybe a walk or two around the neighborhood once or twice a day. And that's all they're looking for. Lots of love, a cozy spot to land, but it has to be together. But oh my gosh, look at these two. Who could say no to this and this? They're just the bestest of friends, and I know that their home is out there. Do you know someone looking for a bonded pair? They are sweet, sweet, sweet pups. Look at them saying hello. Good job. Good job. Well, this sweet fellow right here, this is our friend Castle. Castle is almost 2 years old, and he is a pitty. Castle's looking for a new forever home. He was a known escape artist at his other place. He had gotten out at his former home before, but I think with consistency, keeping him contained outside and a solid fence would be wonderful. Castle's a nice fella that's looking for a home with consistency. He is a sweet boy. Yes, he is. He loves people. He would need to meet any other dogs at home here first to make sure they could be friends before heading home. He's a young guy though, so he's definitely looking for a lifetime commitment. He's kind of done having a lot of stuff going on in his young life, so he'd much rather be home forever at his next adoption. Yes, he would. But as you can see, my goodness, he's sweet as pie. Yes, he is. Just in time for pie season, he says, Auntie, I'm sweet like pie. Yes. He's a happy boy. He's lovable. He's just looking for someone to love him right back and give him what he needs to be a successful boy. He's a young guy, so training would be good for him. He does walk nicely on a leash, but I'd always suggest a harness, especially for a strong guy like him. But he's just as sweet as can be. So if you think that he'd be a good addition to your family, come and meet him today here at Clackamas County Dog Services.
This pretty girl is Raina, and Raina is a unique mix of Airedale Terrier and Golden Retriever. She is a mix of two historically hunting breeds, but the same two breeds are known for being intelligent, loving, and playful. Raina is only 2 years old and still has quite a bit to learn, and she is very eager to learn, eager to please, eager to run, eager to play. She is just very excitable and up for any interaction. She really wants to please you. She is treat motivated and praise motivated, so she is ready for training. Raina loves people and getting to spend time with them, so training time will be an enjoyable bonding time for her. Being so young, Raina will be active for many years and will fit best with an active home that likes outdoor adventures. Dog parks will be a great treat, hikes will be fun, and swimming will be a great way to keep her cool in the summer. Restrictions includes children over 12, as she can knock young tots over in her excitement, and no cats. If you're looking for a unique, athletic, and friendly doggie and have time to devote to her, Raina will make a great canine companion and an excellent adventure buddy.
Everyone, please say hello to my sweet friend Slater. Slater is about a year-old Siberian Husky who is handsome and loving. Yes, Auntie, that's a good chin scratch. He says it. Yes. He is looking for a husky, knowledgeable home. Huskies are gorgeous, gorgeous dogs. And you never want to adopt a dog because of their looks. You want to adopt them based on what their personality is and maybe some breed characteristics. And some breed characteristics for Huskies like him. They are good escape artists. They're really active, smart dogs. So he would need a secure fence at home that he wouldn't want to try and break out of. If there's any dogs at home, they would need to meet him here first, just to make sure they could all get along. Yes. But he does great outside with his friends here. He does talk a lot, as Huskies are prone to do. There you go. As my good boy. But as you can hear, it's a little bit loud here in the shelter lately, so maybe he won't be as vocal and, you know, he doesn't have the accompaniment of the orchestra going on around him. But he's a good, handsome boy. If you are breed savvy with Huskies, come on in and meet my friend today. Sit. Yes, good girl. That's my good girl. Oh, that's my good girl. Everyone, please say hello to my sweet friend Athena. You said? Yes, good girl. Athena is a German Shepherd who is a sweet girl who has been looking for her forever home. Where's our German Shepherd fans out there, Clackamas County? We've got a great one here. Athena already knows some basic commands. Here, let me turn around so you get her face. Come here. Over here. Over here. Sit. Yes, good girl. All right, so Athena is looking for a forever home that has kids 13 and over. And no cats. They would just be way too much fun, she says. Too much fun to chase those kitties. And if there's any other dogs at home, she would need to meet them here first before seeing if they could be forever friends. As you can see, Athena takes really good care of the things that she has here in her kennel. She loves her soft bed that she gets to lay on every single day. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. She likes to play with her toys. She does really good outside in yards. She does demand bark a little bit, so it's something that we're working on with her here. Sit. Yes, good girl. But she's a sweet one. I know that there's some German Shepherd lovers around here that are going to be loving this girl. So come on in here and meet Athena today. She is ready to find her forever home, she says. Hello, everyone. Say hello to my sweetest friend, Huckleberry. Oh, look at this boy. Huckleberry's a 10-year-old black lab. He's looking for a forever home, where there's kids that are maybe 6 years of age or older. Oh, he says that hot dog, Auntie, is chewy. And he seems to be doing good with other dogs. If there are other dogs at home, he'd much prefer them to be kind of on the senior end of things like he is. Those rambunctious youngsters just are not for him, he says, but that's okay. He's done well with small dogs and big dogs. Come here, buddy. Come here, over here. Oh, there he is. Look at that handsome face of this boy. He's just a baby. Yes, he is. He loves his soft bed for taking naps. He does good outside for his time in the yard. He's the type of fellow that would love to maybe take a stroll through the neighborhood, one where he could smell the flowers and say hello to the neighbors. Yes, he would, he says. If you think that you are up for a special boy like Huckleberry, come on in and ask to meet him today. I mean, who can deny this sweet little face, right? Right? That's my good boy. Do you want to lay down? Oh, he knows some tricks, he says. Auntie, I do. All right, Clackamas County, say hi to my friend Sophie. She's a little one. She's a good medium-sized dog. Come here, Mom. Yeah, say hi, Steve. She's a beagle mix, so know that she does have that beagle bay of a bark. So maybe apartment dwelling wouldn't be best for Sophie if we don't want any upset neighbors with her singing ability. And don't get me wrong, if you hear there's a lot of barking happening right now and she's not involved. But when she does bark, it is quite loud. And she's looking for a home where she'll be the only dog there, and no other cats. And if there's any kids, it would be great if they were like 13 or older. She loves being around people. She loves belly rubs. If you work from home, she'd be a great work partner. She can sometimes be a little bit barky towards other dogs, but we worked on that today. And she did so good in her lesson. Yes, she did. She got a gold star for her work today. But she's about, I'd say like 30 pounds. She's a good medium-sized dog, maybe 35. If you're looking for a medium-sized only dog that you can spoil, my girl Sophie is the dog for you. Soph, come back. She's got some socializing to get to. She is ready to walk away from this camera right now. But she's a sweet, sweet girl. Come on in and meet her today. I promise you won't be disappointed. All right, everyone, please say hello to little sweet Chia here. Chia is a chow chow. She's a little chow chow, short and stout. Yes, she is, and she's looking for her forever home. When Miss Chia got here, she wasn't feeling too good, but look at her now. She says, hello, Steve. Hello, friends. She is a good girl. She's on the senior side of life, but she's a very young senior. I think she's only about 7 or 8. She'd still love to go for walks around and maybe go for a walk in the park. She would love that. She seems pretty disinterested in other dogs. She couldn't care if they're near or far. So if she's an only dog, she would be totally happy with that, she says. Oh, there's your hot dog. Here, Mom, I found it for you. Look here. Chia, here it is. I got it. Auntie got it for you. But she's a sweet girl. She will definitely need someone who's going to take care of her coat. She'll need regular brushing. Even a visit to a groomer occasionally, just to kind of give her a nice good blowout and take good care of her. When we're taking care of a dog's coat, we're also taking care of their skin. And when their coats get matted, it can cause really bad abrasions and skin infections, and just who needs a knot on their skin? It hurts, it pulls, and it can just not feel good. And nobody wants her to not feel good ever again. So a good groomer to take good care of her. A nice walk or two around the neighborhood to say hello to some friends. Here, Mom, good girl. But she's sweet as pie. I'll tell you what, I guess I am kind of on a pie theme today. I keep saying everybody's sweet as pie, but I do not tell a lie about the pie. She's a good one. She's a keeper. So if you think that you have room in your heart and your home for Miss Chia, please come on down and ask to meet her today.
You're watching Clacko TV. watching Clacko TV.
Clacko TV. Look for us on these local channels.
You're watching Clacko TV. You're watching Clacko TV. You're watching Clacko TV.
Good morning and welcome to the October 3rd, 2019 business meeting. And first I'd like to welcome Paul Reynolds. Thank you. I was thinking about you today, or many times, how you volunteer to do this job, come in here for a short time and leave. So I just want to make sure, recognize your volunteerism.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And Gary, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Commissioners, our staff support today is County Counsel Stephen Madcor, Clerk to the Board Mary Rathke, Roll Call Commissioner Humberston. Here. Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Chair Bernard.
Here. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing I always do is look up and see if the eagle is looking the right way. Because years ago, somebody noticed that.
Woods.
Who?
Mac Woods.
Mac Woods did. So he had some impact on me because I look every time. With that, we're going to announce that the board will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Housing Authority. And again, our Housing Authority representative, Paul Reynolds, is here. So with that, Gary, what are we doing?
First is a Housing Authority discussion item, approval of the Hillside Park Master Plan Design Concept. Stephen McMurtry, Housing Development Director, will present.
Morning.
Good morning, Chair Bernard and Commissioners. Thank you for having me here today. I'm Stephen McMurtry. I'm the Director of Housing Development for the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. And we're here to discuss the Hillside Park Master Plan Design Concept. And our request is that the board approve the Hillside Park Plan Design Concept so that we can move forward with our land use proceedings and the next steps for the project. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? We had a policy session to review this just this week, and you guys have been working on it a long time. And I guess my question is the community in support of, in general, of this plan?
I believe the community is, in general, in support of this plan. We've gone through a tremendous amount of community outreach and engagement over a year now, and we're very excited about it, and I believe by and large they are as well.
Okay. I don't see a lot of people here to testify in opposition of it, so. All right, so with that, okay, so this is you. Go ahead, Sonia.
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to just comment on how much I appreciate the variety of components of this plan. Oh, I'm getting waved at because my microphone wasn't on. So thank you. I saw that. Now the microphone is on. I want to say I really appreciate all the diverse elements of this plan and the types of housing and the interest in creating a diverse community as far as having some commercial and also having some mixed income, some mixed use, and the open spaces, the walkability, the thoughtfulness that went into all of the components in the trees, having more trees so that we have fresher air, and all of those components. The one thing that I want to emphasize, so my daughter just bought a brand new house, and I went over to it last night because I was babysitting my grandchildren, took them home, and it's like, oh man, why do they build these brand new houses with these barriers for accessibility? Just, it was only one step. But it's like, why? Why did they do that? Why don't we have design standards that will make it easier for the house or the property to have longevity for whoever lives in it with whatever mobility challenges may come? So I just want to put that plug in. I know that all of the design has not been done, but for wherever possible to have these housing units be accessible for people that may be on crutches, may use a walker, may use a mobility device, just wherever possible. Let's reduce steps where possible. If we're creating it new. So just wanted to do that advocacy while I got you here captive. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mary, I probably need name tags on here, otherwise
I wrote that down.
I gotta count them. The only other thing is, and I know we're not into the design part, does county code require sprinklers?
We will, in almost all cases, yes, there will be, and the City of Milwaukee also will require that there will be sprinklered buildings in almost all cases. And that's something that even if they're not, it is becoming more and more prudent a use to put in all building types. And I want to just quickly on that note, because we're talking about next steps, I did want to also remind the commissioners that we'll have another opportunity to roll this master plan out, should you decide to accept it, to the residents of Hillside Park and Hillside Manor, the neighbors that are associated with it in the City of Milwaukee, again, hopefully later on this fall, and we'd love for you to be a part of that.
Yeah, this has been a long time project of interest. I was mayor at the time the county at first rolled it out. And I just want, I think the communication's been a lot better.
Thank you.
It was a challenge back then, and I'm excited to have it move forward. There's a great opportunity with the Metro bond money to do a project that the community will appreciate, and our goal of building mixed income housing, this accommodates that goal in certainly much closer than anything else we've ever done. So thank you for your hard work and yours too, Jill. And with that, I'll announce that the discussion item, ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. Come on up. Both of you come on up.
Give your name for the record.
Good morning. Les Poole. I live in Gladstone. And I do approve of this, and this is the result, I think, of a much more involved and robust process involving the people that live in the neighborhood and the people that are going to live next to what will be built. And I think initially, sometimes government says, well, this isn't going to work here. We can't make this property redevelop, and we sell it. I see property sold. And down the road, then we're looking for property. And right now, the cost of property is very high. So what you're doing here is paramount, because the one resistance you're going to get, and the one concern many have, is, are we going to end up with units that are $469 a square foot or $700 a square foot? You know, how do we get there? So I think that, back to the subject, not to get too far in the weeds here, I think that this is a better outcome than what we were looking at a year ago. And I think that it was the involvement of the community and the county. When I say county, I mean your housing, trying to fit this into a scenario where they can make it work, make it affordable, and deal with the fact that this barely scratches the surface. So I do support this, and most importantly, what I'm really trying to say is I think the way we got here is a model that needs to be followed everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, and actually that brings up a point that I wanted to make, and that is, you know, the Northwest Housing Project ended up being 180,000 a square foot. I mean, yeah, no, a unit, and the closer we can get to something like that, and that's all design, and at this point we have an opportunity to do that, design projects that align the sewer and the bathrooms and the laundry room and the kitchen and stuff like that as much as possible. So thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Claire Clock, Clackamas Conservation District, and also comments on my own. And this is one that's way out on the fringes in the stars, and so to speak, and that I'd like to say something that just came to mind with this development is dark skies ordinances for the city. And I don't know, I haven't talked to the planning person or anything like that, just sort of this, but that's something that you might want to consider in all of the developments that occur. Because, of course, not only for wildlife, but just for livability and being able to sometimes see the stars instead of just city lights. So there is a dark skies society that has engineered plans or suggestions on alleviating what we call light pollution.
That's a good point, and that's something we should look at too. I know that Villebois had a dark sky requirement, so in their street lighting, they're capped so they don't.
Yeah, and we need to have the lighting for security and that type of thing, but it's just a little thing that makes our planet more livable. So I never even thought I would comment today, but this came up. Thank you.
Good point. Thanks for bringing that up. All right, with that, I'll ask for a motion.
I move we approve the Housing Authority Hillside Park Master Plan Design Concept.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much for your comments, and thank you for your work, and thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll announce that we'll adjourn as a Housing Authority Board and reconvene as a Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. And strangely enough, the last two people who are up, come on up. Les? Oh, no, you're not up. So, Charles. Charles, come on up. And Les, you're up first.
Good. Oh, just a quick heads up for you. Typically, in most cities or jurisdictions, if you add a third story to a building, you got to put sprinklers in it. And I'm not speaking as the authority because I'm not, but just as a rule, that third story means it's time for sprinklers. So, Les Poole, Gladstone. Have many of the folks been following what's going on with the Multnomah Neighborhood Association in Portland?
Multnomah neighborhood?
As someone that understands
Portland,
that understands
all of Portland neighborhood.
No, the Multnomah neighborhood in Southwest.
So tell us.
Well, when the resistance came to running light rail through Tiger down 99W, TriMet started looking at different places to go with light rail, and they considered even running up tunnels up in that neighborhood. Anyway, in all of this, the bottom line is that, like Selwood and other areas, it's being redeveloped, but it's a very constrained environment. It's very traditional, and we're getting the 5-story version instead of the 3-story version of redevelopment. And the infill is creating so many impacts that the neighborhood association has fought back. They've legally challenged the city's comprehensive plan, and now they're in a LUBA appeal. They're actually, they lost at the city level, but it's at LUBA. But whether they win or lose, there's a message there, and that is certainly we're going to look closer together, but some of the infill and some of the pressures on land that are exacerbated by mismanagement of the growth boundary, and frankly, I believe mismanaged by folks that are preoccupied with getting us out of our cars. So my message to you is that please watch what's going on in Multnomah, because there's a big message from, of all places, Portland, that resonates much, much louder here in Clackamas County. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that recently a housing or homeless emergency was declared by the county or by the health department or the county. Is that in effect? I'm just curious. And was it my question is, did they declare a houseless emergency or a homeless emergency? And I'm just curious about that. And what's the difference if you got a 30-second answer?
Yeah. So we did renew the housing emergency declaration, and that allows flexibility for our staff, and especially during the winter months when it's really, really cold, and to set up those shelters to be able to do those nimbly and quickly and be able to respond for the public health urgency of it. So we are operating under that emergency still.
So we just extended the one from a year earlier.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for asking.
Thanks. Skip.
Good morning, Commissioner Bernard, Commission Chair Bernard. My name is Charles Ormsby. I live in Portland, Oregon, with a mailing address. I live in Lake Oswego Urban Growth Management Area, Clackamas County tax lot, City of Portland address, and
who are you?
Jack of all trades, master of none. I've been told that too many times. I'm here by myself today. For the first time, I'm not worried about a certain individual. My mother, deceased August 14th, 2019, August 14th, 0400 hours. She was age 105. And I came here today to thank the Commission for sending her this birthday card about 2 weeks before she passed, and signing it and taking the time to sign it. And that's basically what I'm here. Put in the context of her life on Birds Hill Road at 170 Southwest Birds Hill Road, Portland, Oregon, 97219-8502. She moved in literally at her 38th birthday in 1952 with two, came out first time by plane, a Boeing Stratocruiser, which sort of looked like a B-29, and then moved the family out from Port Huron, Michigan, by train. And in those days, Terwilliger Boulevard, Clackamas County Road, did not connect with State Street. Also, there was an interurban service between Portland and Oregon City via the what's now the was it the trolley trail, Thelma Hagen-Miller's territory, and so there's been a slight amount of change in our area in our lifetime. But again, I thank you for the card and the time that you took to sign it and pass it on, and some of the other projects you've got going here. There's a lot of favors I'd ask, but the big one is for Americans with Disability Act. There's two components to it, and you mentioned what stairs. I became an expert bridge layer to get her out of the house. Fortunately, we remodeled circa 1980, traversed with an 8-foot ramp down 3 steps, and then get her out to the carport, another 3-foot ramp. Foldable, thank heavens, but you don't carry those things around. So that is the issue of accessibility to a structure. Then there's the component of mobility. And I don't think the governments are doing a very good job on that in connecting things up between a home and the structure here, for example, in this complex. So that has to be addressed, and I'd like to get in this year's budget means of developing infographics to describe what I call the physics. So everybody knows what the clearances are for a wheelchair getting on a TriMet bus. Dumb little things like that. Turn radius, and most important to me, percent slope. What I affectionately labeled myself as a hippie, human power element, how far, what slope can they push you up? And so you understand that when people come before you, like on this little bridge project, Oak Grove to Lake Oswego, you understand what my issues are on that, and that is a biggie. So, again, thank you for the card, and I'll be talking with you later, probably this week. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we're moving on to the consent agenda. I'll ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Okay, today's consent agenda. Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of a subrecipient agreement with the In True Home and the Community Development Division for Emergency Solution Grant funding for the Rapid Rehousing Services. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Housing and Community Development Division and the City of Sandy for the ADA sidewalk improvements. Approval of a revenue grant agreement with the State of Oregon Early Learning Division for Kindergarten Readiness Partnership and Innovation Program. Approval of an agreement number 9335 to the revenue agreement with Moda Health Plan for provider services to members enrolled with health benefit plans. Approval of a personal services contract with Central City Concern for the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program. Approval of an intergovernmental grant agreement with the State of Oregon Criminal Justice Commission to provide mental health court services. Under the Department of Transportation and Development, approval of an intergovernmental grant agreement with Metro for the Regional Travel Option Grant for a Safe Route to School Program Coordinator. Approval of an intergovernmental grant agreement and acceptance of a grant award for the Regional Travel Option Grant for the bicycle parking in Oak Grove. Under elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. Under technology services, approval of a service level agreement, amendment number 5 between Clackamas Broadband Exchange and LS Networks for a new dark fiber connection. And Water Environment Services, approval of a personal services contract with Lower Columbia Estuary Partnership to provide watershed health education support services. That concludes today's consent agenda.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the Commission for pulling the first one for discussion about the plan, Hillside Park redevelopment. Thank you. Secondly, I'll ask is any member would like to remove or pull an item from the consent agenda for discussion or comment? See none, you have a comment?
Well, possibly. It appears to me that two of them are the same.
Yeah, so number 7 is the same as number 5. Sorry about that.
Okay, so as long as we're aware that we're not doing
one item.
Doing that twice. And then I just wanted to say a couple things about the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, which is a very promising effort to really prevent greater harm as far as getting folks with drug challenges connected to services. And so far, the anecdotal information that I have has been very successful. It's a new program, and we have 70 participants now with the lead program and 2 lead case managers that actually have lived life experience. Highly effective. And these efforts that we do, that we just approve on the consent agenda, are so significant to the health, welfare, and safety of our county. I just wanted to call it out.
Great, thank you very much. With that, all those in favor say aye.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, there's not a motion on the floor.
Oh, that would be helpful.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. With that, we'll move on to County Administrator updates.
Yes, Commissioners, I'd like to share with you some good news happening here with our staff at Clackamas County. First, Water Environment Services sponsored the Summer Waterway Cleanup Series, which many of you participated in last month. It resulted in 1,700 volunteers removing 11,000 pounds of trash from local waterways and natural areas. So this is statewide, actually, I believe, not just here in the county. This was a 30% increase from last year's trash removal total. This was within the county, I'm sorry. So thanks to West and our program sponsor, Solve, for this excellent service. Next, our Public and Government Affairs Department received an honor from the National Association of Government Web Professionals, which is a group dedicated to sharing knowledge, best practices, and innovative ideas among website operators. The county received the Pinnacle Award for the best overall website presence, which factors aspects such as content, organization, design, and accessibility. We also received the Members' Choice Award. So thank you to Public and Government Affairs and Technology Services for our county website. Finally, I want to recognize the Sheriff's Department for two outstanding efforts they recently undertook. First, it's the one-year anniversary of when our sheriff's team saved a 7-day-old baby who had stopped breathing at the Clackamas Town Center. Our deputies were there. Due to their quick actions and collaborative efforts, that young baby survived and is doing quite well today. So thank you to our sheriff's team for being there when they were needed, as they always are. Second, a couple of sheriff's deputies were having a challenging day on the job, and a group of kids came up to them and gave them hugs to thank them for all the work they do. And so our deputies were so moved that they chose to buy bicycles for those kids who their bicycles were recently stolen, and they had no bicycles. And our sheriff's deputies did that out of the kindness of their hearts. So thank you to deputies Mark Nicolai and Steve Funk, who chipped in to buy those bikes out of their own pockets for those kids, and they are going to be recognized in People magazine in November for their outstanding work that's been recognized nationally. So thank you to our sheriff's deputies and the fine work at our sheriff's team.
Wow.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Great, thank you. With that, we'll move on to Commissioner Communication, and Commissioner Schrader, you're up first.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a few things and things I've been doing. One announcement is that Senator Merkley will be visiting the Manufacturing Day at Clackamas Community College. He'll be visiting their Industrial Tech Center at 1 o'clock, and during that morning, they're going to be having youngsters from Oregon City who have access to that program having lunch there, and they'll be having a tour with the senator. And I was invited largely because I do serve on our local workforce board. And one of the other initiatives we've been working on to help families, and particularly to help people move out of poverty and be prosperous, one of the key things that the data shows that working families have a problem with is increased cost of child care. So we will be working, we have a meeting in Sandy, we'll be working with the school district and some of the other folks up there to take a look at how we can really get child care to people. How can we reduce the cost? How can we help those barriered families who can get to work and be prosperous, but they actually need that key piece of child care? So that's going to be an initiative we're actually going to be working on as a workforce board. The other thing is I did notice number 4 in our consent agenda was approval of revenue grant agreement with the State of Oregon Earning Learning Division for Kindergarten Readiness Partnership and Innovation Program. That is the other piece that good child care provides as well. It's getting kids in those early years when their brains are developing, when they can have appropriate food, when they can have appropriate stimulation, reading programs, education, play, that will really, really help them be successful later in life. And the whole purpose is to strengthen the collaboration between early care and the education sector. So we are working on that, and truly it is a large workforce issue for a great number of people here in our county. So if everybody wants to meet Senator Merkley at Clackamas Community College at 1 o'clock, he's going to be there touring that center. I am going to be going to the Friends of Timberline event this weekend. As you know, Timberline is one of our major ski areas. Commissioner Bernard and I actually visited Mount Hood Meadows too as well. We have a real ski kind of a recreation cluster up there, and they want to continue to talk to us at what that might mean for government camp, what that might mean to support that recreation industry up there on the mountain. So Jim, I've been going to the mountain twice in 1 week. That's going to be really something. I think we all attended the Harvesting of Hope luncheon this week. There were a number of us at Mary Gautreau, who was a dear friend to all of us, had her celebration of life, and it was really a fantastic event. Right in the middle of the talk, a ray of sunshine, I think, came through, and we could see it. And then after it was over, wow, there was a big thunderstorm, there was hail, and I always thought maybe that was Mary. Yeah, I was driving.
Oh, you
Well,
were
they
driving.
didn't. I had already kind of gotten in my car, and I was thinking, what are they doing? But all I could think of is that Mary was saying her goodbyes in quite the style that she always exhibited for most of us. And I personally miss her very much because I was a new commissioner. I didn't know anything. And she took me under her wing and really helped me be a better commissioner. And I spent many times with her at the Association of Oregon County meetings, just usually having a drink of wine. Mary and I like our wine. So I will miss her very much, as I know my colleagues will miss her very much. Finally, we had a District 8 meeting on behalf of the Association of Oregon Counties. District 8 includes Washington, Multnomah, and Clackamas County. We had a tour of their facilities, their health facilities, how they are providing for people down there who have mental health needs, behavioral needs, and primary care access needs. It was really, really a useful conversation. I'm serving as the Association of Oregon County President for the next few months. I'll be done in January, but we had a really, I think, good discussion about what our role is in the Association of Oregon County as a district, what that governance looks like, and what we can do to improve our relationships with our other counties, rural, urban, suburban, across the state. So that was really good. So let me go to the word of the week first, Mary. We'll do that. Courage. Mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. Okay, arts and culture activities in the county. Okay, Westland Library Music in the Stacks, Saturday, October 5th from 2:30 to 3:30 at the Westland Library. Neftal Riviera and Trio Boricas capture the essence of Puerto Rican, Cuban, and Afro-Caribbean rhythms, bringing their passion for their heritage, music, and culture to the audience. Milwaukee First Friday Poetry Reading and Open Mic, Friday, October 4th, 6 to 7:30 at St. John the Evangelist Church in Milwaukee. The Milwaukee Poetry Series of the Leading Library of Milwaukee and St. John the Evangelist are delighted to continue this season of First Friday poetry readings for 2019 on every first Friday from May to October. I was there reading my poems at the first series. I was invited to go, and lo and behold, Emmett was there, our own Emmett Wheatfall. He's got a big party today we're all going to go to, was reading his poems. And finally, the Rocky Horror Show is going at Lakewood Theater from September 6th to October 13th, and the next play will be Shakespeare in Love. And Clackamas Repertory Theater is got a new play, never been seen before, really just is fantastic, and it's called Queen's Girl in the World, and I always want to know from Sonia what Kirk is doing, because he did West Side Story.
He's getting ready to open October 11th, West Side Story at the Winningstad Theater, downtown Portland, and we are housing 3 actors and a choreographer from out of town at the moment. So it's, it has really, it's really kind of fun. It's really, really fun to have those folks staying with us at our house. And they're gone at rehearsal all evening, and then I'm gone all day, so I only really get to see them Sunday morning brunch.
Oh, no. Well, if you ever need any more room, let me know. I always like to
Absolutely,
have-
it's quite a gift to
It's kind of fun.
to get
Yeah.
to know these artists. They're fascinating, for sure. Thank you.
Ken, are you done? Martha? Ken?
Thank you. Martha, when I went to the Hood River Labor event, there, I met a lady that does childcare, works on childcare issues. I've given the information to Kimberly. I
Okay,
asked you
great.
to contact her for that information. There may be some synergy there that would be helpful. I attended the Parrot Creek Thank You event this week, the Tom McCall Thousand Friends Gala and fundraiser, the Malala Community event, an Apple Festival, which was fun, and they had a car show. I wasn't able to enter it, but it was always good to see the cars, as everybody knows. I went to Clark's Grange for breakfast. It was a fundraiser for the Malala High School Choir. The Grange there, they do a lot of fundraising for school kids, for scholarships and travel events like the choir, because the choir is going to be competing nationally, and they have to raise the money to get their transportation paid for. So it was well worthwhile going, and I'll tell you, if you ever get a chance to go to one of their breakfasts, go, because they make the best omelets going, bar none. And then yesterday, I took a tour of the BLM land and met the staff that work and run the Bureau of Land Managed Properties here in Clackamas County. Also was there with the people who are doing the fish restoration on the Sandy River. That was quite interesting. They've done an incredible job of almost overnight having the recovery of 3 of the 4 species of salmon. It's incredible how fast they come back when the stream restoration projects are done and done properly. And then one of the things they talked about that I want to share with people that I think is important is the mandate that BLM has for the use of the lands that are currently in Clackamas County and throughout the state and the country. Only 20% of about 141,000 acres of land that they have in this region is eligible for harvesting. They are required by law to manage the property for mixed use. And what that means is it's for recreation, for species preservation, for fish recovery, and the harvesting of timber. And in that 141,000 acres, only 20% is allowed for harvesting. And of that, they harvest 1%, which was about 600 and some odd acres this last time around. So, and they do it in very sustainable ways, making sure that fish cover over, or tree cover over fish streams, et cetera, are maintained to keep the water temperatures down for fish recovery and for fish breeding. They really do work very hard to balance these mixed uses and still be able to provide the wood that we need to build our buildings and the homes that we live in. I would encourage people to go out there, meet them, get tours of the facilities that they have out there, from the bicycle. We have a off-road bicycle trail in some of the BLM land that is one of the top 10 in the world, one of the top 3 in the nation. The people come from all over the world to ride their mountain bikes on those trails. And yet, when you're there, you would hardly even know that the trails were there. So I would encourage people to take a look at the recreational opportunities and also how they do the harvesting and how they do it responsibly and sustainably here in Clackamas County and around the country. And on that note, I will go to the dogs. And today it is a plural. Introducing Zoe and Tucker. They are brother and sister and are looking for a forever retirement home together. Zoe is a 10-year-old Husky German Shepherd mix who can be a little shy at first, but with patience and treats, you will see that she can be a good friend. She likes to go for walks, hang out with Tucker in the yard, and loves a soft bed for a nap. Tucker is a 12-year-old fellow who likes to go for walks, hanging out in the shade with his sister Zoe, and likes to nap in comfort and style on cozy beds. He also thinks that treats are pretty fantastic. A leisurely stroll around the neighborhood every day would be great. He and Zoe take good care of their toys and bed here at the shelter. If you think you have the perfect retirement home for Tucker and Zoe, please come and meet them today. For more information about Zoe and Tucker or any other adoptable dogs, Please contact Dog Services at 503-655-8628 or www.clackamas.us/dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Bernard. Wow, we have all been so busy. It always makes me just take a little bit of a sigh as my other commissioners go through their busy weeks. And it's really been something. But today, I just want to focus on one event that Chair Bernard and I attended, which was the Legal Empowerment Accelerator Program, which is LEAP. You know, I talked about LEAD, which is the Law Enforcement Diversion. This is the Legal Empowerment Accelerator Program. Between LEAPs and LEADs, we got a lot of acronyms going on. But this program is a way to help reduce domestic violence. It is a connection for new attorneys to be connected with survivors of domestic violence so that they can get the legal services that they need to successfully transition to a life of safety. I was really impressed with the launch event that was at Villa Catalana, which is one of our county's most beautiful wineries here locally, just right here in Oregon City. I was very impressed with how this program got started because it was really board generated. Members of their board thought this is a very important part of the continuum for safety. And what's so exciting for me as an attorney who has practiced family law, I've had the incredible honor and privilege of helping to transition people to lives of safety as an attorney. When I was working as a case manager social worker early in my career for Multnomah County, I saw the repeated cycle of people not able to escape those relationships, going back to those relationships, and really seeing the struggle. One of the key areas where it's so hard is lack of legal services. So this will provide a very, very important link. And I also want to highlight another theme that both Commissioner Humberston and Commissioner Schrader mentioned, which is childcare. The cost of childcare is very prohibitive to people that are trying to get on their feet and rise economically. It's a real barrier. There are going to be efforts that we're going to see more of from our elected leaders at the state and efforts happening here locally to really focus on that issue. It's really important element for to help us with one of our key goals, which is to really reduce domestic violence and encourage safety, one of our key strategic initiatives. So with that, I will pass it back to, I guess it's...
Well, thank you. I wanted just to acknowledge a lot of the volunteers who worked on the libraries. We have a lot of library committees currently that are working on a project, and last night was no different. Commissioner Schrader and I, a couple Mondays ago, attended another one. But it's really great to see a lot of people that are very passionate about the libraries. And a lot of the folks are my age and older. You know, there's a few that are younger, but we're doing it on behalf of really the younger generations, actually. And they seem to be kind of somewhat left out of a lot of representation on a number of things that we do in the county. But they're busy, you know. I think children and parents are busy raising their kids and trying to move their kids around, going to whether it's school or going to the doctor or going to soccer practice or a number of things. And it's about mobility. And when we were talking earlier about mobility, as far as the folks that are disabled, the ADA mobility issues that we touched on earlier, got into really of a passionate discussion a couple Wednesday mornings ago. Commissioner Bernard was there when you know, one of our local leaders who's very passionate about bike usage and thinks that a lot of people should get on bikes. I guess I got a little bit concerned because a lot of people can't really get on a bike. You know, I rode a bike a lot, still try to ride my bike when I can, but I got to take it in steps because it takes me about 2 or 3 weeks for my knee to recover from riding my bike. But you know, when we're moving our families around, and we have to realize that there's just mobility means so many different things. It's safe access. It's access for people who are disabled who need, you know, a way to move from for 36 inches of grade, be able to move from their porch or what it may be, or a barrier at a facility that they need to access. It came roost to some degree when a number of folks I know that were trying to honor the boycott. It happened to be this local issue with the grocery stores. And a lot of people don't have choices because they don't have an ability to be mobile. And talking to a number of folks at alternative stores, and my wife does a lot of the shopping, and so we're echoing and hearing a number of the issues about how do we move in this region. And as we talk about transportation, I think there are a lot of people that are in areas of the region that have a number of alternatives, a number of choices, and we don't have that same level here. Or maybe folks don't realize the needs, but I think the forgotten folks, I think, are the senior citizens. The forgotten folks are the youth that don't have access, and I think the forgotten folks are often not in the core hub of the metro region, and they're on the periphery, and a lot of those factor into Clackamas County. We have probably the highest population of senior citizens per capita than any of the other counties. We're not the only one, however. But we got to look at our demographic. We got to realize who we're serving, and that the answer for everyone is not bikes, not bicycles. Certainly it's a component. It's embedded in our plans. We're doing everything we can. But I did really want to just acknowledge that all the volunteers are doing everything they can, but not necessarily because they're 65 years old doesn't mean that they're not trying to represent the need for youth and all the other things that we do, all the other volunteers. You know, we happen to be available. As we get older, we have access, we have the time, but we just don't have that representation. I think that's, you know, from those people themselves. Last night, a very passionate young lady, I would call her young, she's probably in her 30s. I met her last night at a meeting. And she was very passionate about what's happening in her neighborhood. Happens to live very, very close to the Park Avenue area, and very concerned about the health and welfare and safety of her family and what's happening on her street, and seeing things, as she would use the words, a number of the values are being decimated. She's new to the area and moved to the area, but was kind of shocked to see some of the negative impacts. Reached out to the local sheriff, or our sheriff, on some local issues that are happening in our area, but there's a lot of concerns. Met with a lady on this Monday, who lives in the area, and she's just very, very concerned about the increasing number of homeless people and the impacts of that. So we have a lot of good news stories, and sometimes we have some not so good stories, but we're trying to cope the best we can with the limited resources, and I think it's just imperative that we recognize and look through the lens of how what we do impacts all different populations, senior citizens, those that are disabled, those that are not, youth, how they move around, and folks. So I think we need to be mindful of all those needs on everything that we do in a time of very scarce resources, and I'll talk about that one at another meeting.
Okay, thanks. And I believe I missed last week's meeting, so I don't know if you guys, oh yeah, I called in.
Yeah, we remember.
You were Charlie Brown.
Yeah, that's what I was told. So, and I don't know if you mentioned our meeting with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde.
Yes, we did.
You did. So we've met here with them and there with them, and it's the first time any commission's ever met with the tribes. Now we are reaching out to the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, because they actually have a piece of their lands within Clackamas County, a very small piece, which you'll see when you go to the conference in Bend. You'll see the sign. So I'm looking forward to that. I think one thing you mentioned, and it's something that is a priority for me, is if we're going to be spending money on McLaughlin, the parking structure, and a bathroom is really important. So we need to really work on that. And those folks should come to that meeting, the Metro meeting, and perhaps testify about the challenges they have on Park Avenue. I know that's just one of them.
I understand they're somewhat being discouraged because of a lack of opportunity and time allotted for that
It is
comment.
very true. Our one meeting took an hour and a half, and that didn't leave much for the rest of the meeting. The other thing you mentioned, childcare. You know, one of my goals here on campus is to offer childcare to people getting services here. And that's not, I mean, we need to do that at no cost to the county. So we need to figure out in the future when we do our courthouse, you know, will parents have an opportunity to drop kids off? Will employees who work here have an opportunity to drop kids off? And people who are across the street at our Family Justice Center, is there an opportunity to drop kids off? They do provide some child care there now. And then you mentioned species of salmon on the Sandy. We had an opportunity to go up there. I got to correct you on one thing. There's only one species of salmon that goes up in the Pacific Northwest. They're all types of salmon, coho, and I looked it up because I was wondering. Because on the Atlantic coast, they are a different species. They don't lay eggs and die.
So I stand corrected, it's not species, it's types.
Yeah, I just.
Fair enough.
And then I just wanted to mention today that I was signing all the recognition of 5, 10, 20, and 30 years of service of employees at Clackamas County. I just think it's amazing, you know, that people stay that long. And Mary, by the way, who's been here more than 30 years. Thank you for your service, and thank all the employees for their service. We do a recognition lunch. Mary's 30 years was in September. Did you go to the lunch?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, you need to come so we can recognize you. And the other thing is that this Thursday, I think I have something else, or no, it's one in the future, I think. Which is a diversity council learning luncheon that I want to go to. So I'm going to need some people to attend, make sure we have enough people at the recognition lunch. And finally, you know, I'm sort of a farmer, and we had a chicken that broke its leg.
I'm glad you used the word sort of.
I'm sort of a part-time farmer. I have cattle and chicken. We had a chicken that broke its leg, and you know, for me, a chicken's just, you know, a chicken. But that's what somebody said. But Danielle actually called a vet to come, and I was happy the chicken didn't get surgery. We had to euthanize the chicken, but it was. I just thought it was, you know, kind of strange. But anyway, chicken. But I want to also thank all the farmers. You know, I know one other thing we need to talk about, and probably pretty soon, is about the Aurora Airport. You know, they're expanding the Aurora Airport. I sat on that planning committee, and when I left, they hadn't adopted the plan. They claim they did. But we just need to find out information. I've asked Greg Leo, who represents Wilsonville, to give us some information. Not that we oppose the Aurora Airport expansion. We're not saying that. But we ought to be provided information since we are right there. Clackamas County citizens are impacted by that airport. And I haven't heard hardly anything about it. And so I'm requesting that we perhaps have a policy session here, you know, when we have time to discuss the Aurora Airport. I know Paul knows more about it, and Martha knows about Ken, and I don't know if you do or not. You do, okay.
Not recent.
No, I haven't either. I haven't heard a thing. But there is some concern. I ran into one of the farmers who happens to farm one end of the airport and wanted to know why the county commission hadn't been involved. And I said, I haven't heard anything about it, in quite some time. So with that, we need to go to a lunch, and we got done before 11. So thank you very much for coming today. And with that, we're adjourned.
You're watching Clacko TV.
Ultimate Airstreams is one of 2 factory-authorized custom upfitters, which means we can order parts directly from Airstream. And we have 2 main businesses. We have our retail line, so we do remodeling, custom upfitting for current Airstream owners. And then we can order shells from the factory to do build-outs for commercial clients. We've done a mobile science lab to a mobile barber shop, anything you could really imagine that you want to outfit an Airstream for. What's really unique about Ultimate Airstreams is the product line that we offer. A lot of our guests say that we do everything that Airstream doesn't. So that's what really makes us unique. The other thing that makes us unique is the ability to order materials directly from the factory. So when a guest coach leaves here, even though it's been remodeled, it looks just like it would if it was to roll off the factory floor. One of the most special things that we provide is our upholstery. And so the upholstery that we use is a high-grade vinyl. We do upholstery a lot different than the factory does from Airstream. So we use different material. We offer 3 different densities of foam. Just like an Airstream is really built to last a lifetime, our upholstery is built to last a lifetime. We make a lot of cabinetry. But one thing that we do that a lot of people don't is that we do Corian. So Corian countertops, we have the ability to put Corian in any Airstream. We can custom make it, we can custom fit it, we order it in sheets so we can cut it down to size, and we can build it out to whatever your heart desires. We solve a lot of problems for guests where we're building them a custom spot for their printer. That's solving a huge problem for a guest, is they had this bulky printer, they didn't know what to do with it, now we're finding a spot for it. So when we build out a commercial trailer from scratch, we utilize our graphic design company that we have here in-house, which is really helpful to us. So we have a group of designers, and that process really just starts at a build outline to give a conceptual design of the build. We're a full custom shop, so whatever you want done, we can deliver on. We try to do about 12 to 15 trailers a month. Some of those projects span multiple months. Some of them are in and out in a few days. We work with our guests on their timelines, how they're traveling, their travel schedule, to ensure that we don't impact their lives too much. Because a lot of guests are full-timers. This is their home. This is where they spend all their time. So me wanting to take their home for weeks on end has a huge impact to their life. One thing that is really important to us is access to the freeway. Ease of access for guests getting in and out of our facility is very, very important. So that's another thing, for us, is having the partnership and the relationship with an exclusive Airstream dealership right off 99 in Gladstone. Being so close, being 7 minutes away, we transport units back and forth every day. The availability of space within Clackamas County made it real easy to pick this area. We were formerly in the Wilsonville area. and moving here made a lot of sense to us. We also looked at where our current team members were living. We employ craftspeople, and there are a lot of craftspeople that live in the Clackamas County area. And so as we look to expand our business and need new fresh talent, being in the Clackamas County area and having access to that talent will help us grow. I've lived in Clackamas County for years. I've done construction in Clackamas County. Clackamas County has always been the easiest county in the Portland metro area to work with. So when it comes to permitting, when we do TIs, when we built up this facility, we were able to move fast and quickly. We were not held up by the county. We've been working with the county to make some zoning changes here. They're always really responsive. They're always easy to get a hold of. In my experience of living in the Portland area for 20 years, I've always targeted Clackamas County because of their ease of use to work with.
So we're going to let Alan Ababiska take it from here. Alan is on the board of Safe Helvetia and Helvetia Community Association. Alan's going to give us a overview of their journey and challenges in a similar kind of vein. So, Alan, thanks again for joining us, and tell us all about it.
Thank you, John, for inviting me. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. Let me give you just a background. How did I get into this? Basically, back in the early 1990s, I was working with the elementary school where my two daughters were going. And I just happened to be walking down the hallway one day when one of the ladies came up to me and said, "We hear you know something about finance." I balanced my checkbook. And I said, what do you need? And they said, well, we have a little, wives of a school, not even a school board function. It was a community club where the women of the area put together a little pie sale once a year to help give money to the schools. And they raised somewhere in the vicinity of $300. But they knew that they needed more. So someone had thought, maybe we could do a nonprofit, but no one knew how to do it or wanted to do that. So someone asked me, could you help us develop and start a nonprofit? I had absolutely no knowledge of how to do a nonprofit. But I said, well, okay, sure, let me try. I'll try to put together some information. So I just went and got an IRS manual on how to put together a nonprofit. I put the nonprofit together. And due to my work, where I worked in finance, I knew how to talk to people, so I would be able to talk. I just called up the IRS agents in San Francisco and said, here's what I'm trying to do. I filled the form out to this level, but I can't answer the next question. Can you help me? I didn't act professional. I just thought, well, I'll just act like I'm a member of this local community. And they helped me put together a nonprofit. They told me what to fill out, what not to say, what to say on each line. And I put together the nonprofit. And I handed it back to the little club and said, here's your nonprofit, here's how you run it, here's what you need to do, which was very simple, outlined, and I was done. The people involved with the nonprofit, they now put together their bake sales. They started to grow. They got more people in. 2 years later, remember, they started at $300. 2 years later, $30,000. And they had the infrastructure to handle it. They literally were able to bring in OMSI. They went to OMSI, said, you have courses, seminars, we'd like you to just bring them to the school. And the teachers worked with OMSI, coordinated what was going on, and that's what happened. And I would get updates, because I went back to work. I had nothing to do with the club. I would get updates from my children saying, Dad, you know what happened today? They had eagles and owls flying in the gym. Okay, well, that sounds pretty nice. They're doing a great job. Fast forward a few more years, someone came to me and said, we're trying to form a nonprofit. We need some guidance. Okay, I'm an expert. I know I did one. So I gave them advice on how to fill it out and what to do, and they went and did it. And that became the Save Helvetia organization. I, in the meantime, had my career working along, and I had heard that there was groups getting together. So there's no magic here. It's just an individual. You have the expertise. Each of you have knowledge, expertise. But when you work together, you can put together something very powerful. So let me give you a description of what happened out in Helvetia. That's the area in north part of Washington County, north of Highway 26. The Helvetia community, they have a long tradition of fighting for the land. Nearly 100 years ago, a farmer became very upset with the railroad, which was taking land, being given land arbitrarily in blocks across the county. That farmer said, that's not right, I don't want to lose this land. And he began to fight and fund it by himself, and actually went to the state Supreme Court and won, stopping the land grab by the railroad. That's how he perceived it. But again, he preserved the land. Next slide, please. In the 1990s, early 1990s, and up through the 2000s, the citizens of Helvetia were faced with multiple challenges at different times. And they had to fight to preserve the land. They had to fight against the state, metro, and local governments over various issues. They had to prevent the siting, for example, of 2 state prisons, a men's prison and a women's prison, at different points in time. They had to fight Metro over a major garbage transfer site to be built in the middle of Helvetia. They also then had to fight the local governments over what was called an animal waste dump. It turns out, who knew, right, that sheep are imported from Australia into the United States, and they, at that time, were coming through Portland. And during transit, some of the animals would die, and they needed a place to dump the animals. Who realized that there were 10,000 sheep carcasses that needed to be buried on prime agricultural land? Well, the community citizens fought. They just banded together and tried to fight this, and were able to deflect, push away those attacks on that prime farmland. And it is indeed prime farmland. Helvetia area has some of the most valuable farmland in the world. The type of soils there are incredibly productive. You can grow over 100 crops in that land. One of the interesting things that most people don't realize is across that land is a more than 100-year-old drainage system that has been built underground. Some of it with clay tiles back in the early part of the late 1800s, early 1900s, put in clay tiles. These tile systems run for miles across properties. You can only see them when you're driving down a country road and you see water coming out of an entrance, a tube, into the ditch alongside the road. What it's doing is draining the excess water, which Oregon seems to have an abundance of if you're outside, and you'll see it later today. It drains the fields, allows the farmers to go in and put in their crops. They don't need irrigation. the land is so powerfully fertile, they can just grow the crops with a proper maintenance, proper drainage. Next slide, please. In 2009, that's when I was asked to help put together the Save Helvetia organization. And that battle that they were trying to fight, which they realized they needed a more sophisticated organization, was basically an abuse of the land use system, the procedures and policies by the county of Washington and the city of Hillsborough. They were attempting to take 15,000 acres of the most prime farmland, and the members of that group working together had been told by the city of Hillsborough they're going to put in warehouses across all that land. Not houses, warehouses across all that land. So the citizens banded together under the Save Helvetia organization, and these are just citizens. We're talking farmers, residents, some of the residents, longtime people have been there, and news people, people that were working in high-tech region that lived out there that said, this doesn't sound right, it's not working. They're not following the rules. Save Helvetia put together those people, explained to them how to make the process work, and got them in for testimonies in the local towns and at Metro and in Portland. It was a multiple year-long fight, but it was being rammed through this illegal process, which was an abuse of the land use laws. And in that process, Save Helvetia began to work with Thousand Friends, because we found out Thousand Friends of Oregon had a lot of information. They had a lot of knowledge, and they had a lot of lobbying expertise, which frankly Save Helvetia didn't have. They just had people who cared. So that proved to be a very powerful and mutually beneficial partnership. They fought together in wide-ranging groups, but the law just kept being pushed, not the law, but the land use findings were rammed through. At the end, Save Helvetia joined with others and Thousand Friends of Oregon and filed a lawsuit against Washington County. Said, you didn't follow the rule. I mean, Save Helvetia is a very fundamental organization. It's basically, think of it as a law enforcement group. Because really, we were just looking at the law saying, this is what it requires. You didn't follow the steps. The battle went all the way to the Oregon Court of Appeals, and we won. Well, next slide, please. The shock to the system was extensive. Due to the significant economic disruptions involved, that's when the legislatures had to step in. Because there literally were probably hundreds of millions of dollars in investments that had been following the land use process. Land had been purchased, things had been put in place, plans, developments, and it was all on hold. And as a result, the state legislature passed what is called, it's famously known as the Grand Bargain. And that process, that law, basically tried to settle the land use disputes. It did save the vast majority of the farmland. Next slide, please. But in the process, a fundamental change occurred in land use policies and the effects here in Oregon. It gave a new open door to individuals and groups seeking a quick fix or bypass of the land use laws, and and how they did that, they're initiating land use bills or bills related to land use now in Salem, not in your local community. This new phase in the land use process has dramatically changed how local communities must operate. No longer can you just deal with your local government officials. You can, but you have to have a very strong connection with what's going on in Salem And in that process, Save Helvetia now has become an affiliate of Thousand Friends. And in doing so, we've gained all that knowledge and expertise which we don't have. We can provide individuals for testimony, but now it's very difficult because in very short notice, you have to get down to Salem. So now lots of written testimony are going down there. But that's the change. And in that process, Save Helvetia is reaching out, trying to keep track of other groups. What is everyone doing? What law is being passed that may be initiated by someone, say, in Ontario, not in Hillsborough, coming out of Hillsborough? Is that law out there going to directly impact the lands? The good news is there are resources. We're now affiliated with Thousand Friends. They give us the early warnings. We then broadcast to our teams to get the testimony in, to get whoever can make it in very short notice to Salem. But again, there's no great reservoir of knowledge or expertise within Save Helvetia. It's just folks like you, no different. Got a caterer, someone that actually not owns the company, actually does the on-site catering. She's great because she goes to meetings and she can hear politicians talking and she just makes mental notes. Oh, that's what they're getting ready to do. But I also have farmers who go out there on their tractors. They don't want to go to public meetings, but they're willing to sit down and write something at night and mail it off. So you need to start thinking about pulling things together. So that's Save Helvetia. Think of it as a defensive organization that works to protect, to try and preserve what's there, and works with a local community, and that's its aspect. And by the way, it is a nonprofit, but is a 501c4, which is more like a political action group. It's allowed to lobby. Has no tax, you can't get tax deductions if you make donations to it, so you have to get people who care, who just care. But you have to have that capability going. So again, I'm not anyone special. I'm just the guy someone asked for help, and then I got pulled in, slowly but steadily, and I get a really nice hat. But I wear several hats. So Save Helvetia is that organization. I have another hat. This is the hat, next slide please, is the Helvetia Community Association. Think of this one as the offensive organization. It doesn't do political action. It is folks who actually like the land. They're trying to protect the land, work with the community, work with the culture of the land. I got pulled in because I knew how to balance checkbooks. And they needed it to be a nonprofit, and guess what I had to do? They said, you did such a great job consulting on the other nonprofit. Could you do this one? And I said, yeah, I'll do this one. Okay. And then they just won't let me leave now because I'm the only one that knows how to file the state paperwork. So, that's just how it works. Nothing fancy. Next slide, please. So this organization deals with the history, the culture, and the environment of our local region, the Helvetia region. That's what we do. The specialty, how we got started is we put together festivals because we realized we have to reach out to the community, inform them what's going on. What great better way to start out that is putting together a festival in late summer, bring people in and have different groups present, do shows, show and tells, sell some of our merchandise. We've got merchandise for sale. You can get the spiffy hat if you go on the website. It's very nice. And so we held it in a barn. Someone has a barn? Yes, I helped clean the barn before it and wiped out all the windows. It's a nice barn. So put together that. Next slide, please. But during this festival, what we're doing is we're explaining to people about the culture of the region. And yes, we did invite the Native Americans to come in because they're the original owners of the land, if you will. They have farmed that land for over 10,000 years. And indeed, they farmed. I didn't realize all the ancient oak trees out there that you see, the big ones, they planted them families, Native Americans, families owned tracts of land, in a sense, and grew oak trees because they needed the acorns to help produce the bread. And so the children, as the Native American representative that came to the event explained to me, the children, took care of the little nursery area where it had all the little trees. The moms and dads planted the trees once they were ready to come out of the nursery, and the grandparents helped grind the acorns that were harvested. And they did other farming. It just wasn't recognizable because they kind of mixed crops together in very innovative ways. You now read that in the like the CSAs are starting to look at how you can have companion planting. Well, they already knew about it. The only challenge we had was by the time the settlers came here, disease had wiped out almost the entire population, so we'd lost that connection. The Native Americans know about it, but it's there. So we invited them. And as you can tell, a great hit. They'd put on shows. Next slide, please. But of course, we always did the local settlers. And in our area, the Swiss were settlers. And they would play their tunes. Really, after about 4 of different songs, you can't actually tell the difference. You kind of get the feel. But it's great stuff, you know. They know that. And they play the horns. But what were we really doing is showing people the connections. What's going on? What was going on here? Who lives here? Because you drive through it, it looks beautiful. But it was nothing more than asking, who can do this? A group we heard played the horns. We asked them, could you come in and play the horns? And we did other things. We did pie sales, pie walks, circles on the floor. People walk around. Turned out to be a huge hit because you could win a pie every time you won. So people would do that. But what were we doing? Bringing in the connection. Next slide, please. Every year, by the way, there is a parade in Helvetia. Most people don't realize it. They close the road, Helvetia Road, near the church, the historic Helvetia Church, and basically the kids bring their animals down through, and some of the parents too. Different animals. It's quite an event. I've been there several times. Again, tying people to the culture. What actually happened? What's been going on? What are people doing? And in fact, the Helvetia Community Association, because of our association with this and with the festival, we also do publish historical books by a local author. The Cultural Coalition of Washington County has provided annual funding to our nonprofit because of what we're doing as part of sharing the culture. So we have books on the Native Americans with their approval. A book has been written. We've done books on the Swiss cheese makers. That's out. We're working on another book, The Early Settlers, what's going on. And we actually, there's a book that's almost ready for publication. It was the first African-American family to live in Washington County, was up there. It was actually a well-regarded family. And we're working with the family, descendants, right now getting the final, forwards. They're going to write up a little article about it. They were one of the more famous people to live up there. But again, we're using techniques, different ways of trying to pull people in to explain why is the land important? What's going on here? I mean, people drive around, they see these little blocks of forest out in the middle of fields and don't think anything about it. What they don't realize is those are Native American burial grounds that the owners know. It's been passed down generation to generation, owner to owner, saying, don't clear that property. Leave it. That is sacred land. So we also put together pamphlets. We have tour pamphlets. People know where to go to see the sites of Helvetia, where the parade's at. Next slide, please. But Save Helvetia has been defending it. Now, Helvetia Community Association, better known as HCA, is now shifting gears to become a conservation organization. We have conservation easements. We have 2. So We're moving up. We've got forest land, which is a wildlife habitat, and we've got agricultural land. But again, we're trying to educate the community on why this is important. Farmers are starting to ask us about it. What's going on? How does this work? We don't have the funding to buy land or pay for easements. We're depending on the owners to say, we think this land is special, we want to preserve it in perpetuity. Again, we had no special expertise, we just launched into it. Someone came to us and said, can you do a conservation easement? We looked at our bylaws, we had written enough in there. It was great. We had a lawyer review it, and he said, well, just add a couple of phrases. We added the phrases, boom, we're legal. We don't say land trust, we're just Helvetia Community Association. And we put together the easement. I do the land surveys every year. I walk the property. I filled out the form that I got off the Land Trust Association, the national one, and I just fill in the blanks. And I take the pictures. And I talk to the landowner. I mean, there's no great mystery here. It's just a matter of asking yourself, why not? So, in summary, to be effective, we found that in our evolving land use process, you need to clearly define your defensive goals. Why are you trying to defend the property? How are you defending the property? But you also need to have offensive goals. I want to protect this property forever. I want it to maintain. I want to save the culture, save the environment. What can I do? You need to have those there so you can protect what you believe is unique to your community. And you need to seek out opportunities to partner. You can't do this alone. Oh, actually, you shouldn't do it alone. It's a lot easier if you get someone else to tell you, oh, try this, don't do that, that's not going to work. You know, oh, cool, save time, make your own mistakes. Don't repeat what everybody else has made. It's just a lot easier. And if the last slide, please. So, I'll end my talk with a quote from Tom McCall, our 30th governor. And he, I think, elegantly defines why each of you are here today. And this is his quote, a quote from him. Heroes are not giant statues framed against a red sky. They are people who say, this is my community, and it's my responsibility to make it better. I thank you.
My ancestors, actually from a couple of sides of the family, came across the Oregon Trail, so my roots are very deep in Oregon. I'm married to a family physician, Dr. Mike. Mike found a job. He found a clinic that, when I met them, I understood why he wanted to come to Oregon City. Oregon City at the time was really not very focused on being the end of the Oregon Trail. We got this idea to put on an outdoor historical drama. We called it the Oregon Trail Pageant. So that was the first thing I did, which actually introduced me to Willamette Falls. Willamette Falls for me held many mysteries. Why did it have that artificial barrier at the top? How did the salmon get over? And why were those two big mills built on its shores? It stimulated my curiosity, and then I learned the answer to some of those questions. You know, salmon so thick they walk across the stream on their backs, how fertile the land was, and that in the early days, of course, industries built on the edge of waterfalls because they needed the power. And then throughout all of that research, I learned about the displacement of the native peoples. It still fascinates me today to learn about the many layers of history that happened in Oregon's first incorporated city. The fact that we were the territorial capital, that it was the center of government, it was the center of industry and commerce, kind of because of the falls. That was the magnet. That's why people settled here. They wanted the power of the falls. My husband and I have canoed many times up under the lip of the falls. And I think probably one of the most dramatic things for our family is that it's nature, and the flood of 1996 affected our family directly. Community support was so overwhelming. About 65 people of the community down at the family practice clinic and helping pull out the files to go into U-Haul trucks to get to safety. We worked way into the early morning to clean out the office. But the sun shone on a beautiful, bright blue sky the next morning, and we didn't have anything to do, and so we thought, let's just take our canoe out on the floodwaters. So we put the canoe in, and we rode past the flooded grocery store. We went on down by the end of the Trail Interpretive Center. The water was way up into the wagons. We really had an enjoyable canoe ride, a little ominous, but then we decided to go down to the overlook where Dr. McLaughlin's bust is, and the falls barely fell. I mean, it was like a foot of fall. The water was flowing so high, it really wasn't much of a waterfall, and you could see the water going through the mill. As I was preparing to run for mayor, I listened to the community. I wanted to pick up the threads of what the community wanted. And I looked at my old speeches that I was giving in 2002 as I was running, and many of them were peppered with the probable transformation of the Blue Heron site. So it was very much in the thought processes of the community when the 175 workers were laid off. It was a tragedy for the community, but also an opportunity. This is 22 acres on Oregon City's waterfront. It sort of divided the old historic downtown Oregon City in two, and it actually absorbed some of the historic buildings, the old Opera House, the old Oregon City Woolen Mill. So many of those historic layers are on that Blue Heron site. We have a 150-foot right-of-way that the developer has given to the public. So for the first time, we're going to have a river walk that will be public access, a public experience. The community has driven what's now become the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. The 4 core values came from the community. What do we want to have happen there? We want healthy habitat, we want access to views of the falls, we want economic development, and we want cultural interpretation of the layers of history that are so important. It was so interesting when I was mayor I called it a treasure hunt, because people would tell me about things I never heard about in the community, and it was like digging up treasure. And I feel like the Willamette Falls Legacy Project is another hidden treasure that is this region. In a way, working on it's kind of an accumulation of all the things that I've done and learned throughout my time of community service. I want to see this project finished in my lifetime. I would love to be able to walk on the Riverwalk, sit there and feel the spray of the falls in my face, and think about the transformative power of the water and of the human beings that have lived there in the past and that will come and visit in the future.
Thank you.